Stai ascoltando il podcast di Discorsi Fotografici.
Dal 2010 il primo podcast italiano di fotografia.
Novità, interviste, recensioni, cultura fotografica.
Discorsifotografici.it. Throughout her great career, Cristina Mittermeier has journeyed to every corner of the world in the guide of photographer, marine biologist and activist. Over the years, she has recorded the beauty of our planet and the various culture and traditions of its inhabitants, from its landscapes to its constantly evolving wildlife. She has used their work to tell the stories of communities all over the world that maintain a link with nature and have a deep understanding of the delicate balance of our ecosystem. Cristina Mittermeier's work bears witness to tradition, rituals and knowledge handed down from generation to generation and invites us to reflect on a greater wisdom. Cristina Mittermeier is co-founder with Paul Nicklin and Andy Mann of Sea Legacy, an international organization with a mission that is to restore the health of our ocean. We know that you began your career as a marine biologist and worked closely with indigenous communities in the Americas, developing a deep respect for nature and an understanding of the challenges facing ecosystems and the people who depend on them. How do you believe photography can get these stories out there and, more importantly, compel meaningful changes in our attitudes and behaviors towards nature?
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. I think I started my career first as a human being, as a child who was always interested in nature. I always had a fascination with animals, curiosity about how our planet works. And I was also a very big empath. I always was worried about the well-being of other people. I've always, to this day, really care about the suffering of other people. So that's the combination of things that took me to get into science first. I thought that marine biology was going to be the key for me to be part of this community of people who care about our planet and our oceans. And then I realized that science is a difficult language for most people to understand, to talk to. Science doesn't really convey emotion. And I discovered photography and storytelling by accident, just because I used to share office room with another photographer, a very famous Mexican photographer. And I could see how his images and his work, his books, his lectures had such an impact on the audiences that he was reaching. And I thought, so I picked the wrong career. I should have been a photographer. And that's how I started my photography career.
The process of photography, from shooting to producing photo books and setting up exhibition, inherently impacts the environment. Are there any particular strategies that you use or encourage your collaborators to employ to ensure that your work has as little impact on environment as possible?
Yeah, I think it's important that we acknowledge that photography has reduced its impact a lot. Since we switched from silver mediums and film to now digital, our footprint is less. But for myself as a photographer, I am a minimalist, both in my home and in my work. I don't like to own all the equipment, and I don't need to travel to all the destinations. So I try to maintain, a very small thing that I carry with me, so that I don't need, an assistant and 2 other people to come with me. And I just try to remember that whatever stories I'm telling and the impact I'm having in creating positive action for our planet. Really, the impact, my footprint as a photographer is so small compared to the impact I'm having. So I have to stop beating myself up for my footprint. And I try to be minimalist in everything, the way I eat, the way I travel, the way I purchase, everything.
While many places on Earth are at risk, based on your experience, are there any places or situations that we can confidently say are currently free from risk?
No, nowhere it's free from risk because the Earth is not a series of compartments. The Earth is a whole ecosystem. And we have been picking away at different places on Earth, the rainforest, the ocean, the boreal forest, little by little, our fresh water, the rivers, the species that live here, that I would be confident in saying that the whole Earth is at risk and that the things that happen in one place greatly impact the well-being of people, humans, species in every other place on planet Earth. We are interconnected. We are traveling on a spaceship. If one of our engines goes down, we all go down.
Can beauty in photography still awaken our conscience, or have we become desensitized to visual languages that lacks vitality?
What a great question. I think we are a little numb and just a little overwhelmed because there's so much amazing content on digital medium everywhere. So I think that to answer your question, yes, beauty has a very important role to play. I think gloom and doom and being dark and negative really turns people off. They don't want to even be part of the conversation. So I subscribe to the teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King, and he didn't start his famous speech on civil rights by telling us he had a nightmare. He told us he had a dream, and he painted with his speech the dream for what is it that we're trying to accomplish. So I think with beautiful photographs, we are reminding the world, why is it that we're fighting for this planet? It is because we want to live in a place that has whales and elephants. And yes, I think the beauty is very important. But Dr. King also reminded us with a speech that, things are not okay and we have a long way to go to make it right. I think the beauty in photography and the work that photographers do is an invitation to all audiences to want to become part of a movement that wants a better planet.
How did the concept of enoughness originate and how successful has it been? Are humans ready to adopt this concept?
Great question again. No, humans are not ready to adopt this concept, but I learned the idea of enoughness just because there's no word in English or in French or in Italian to talk about human completeness. When you travel to remote places where people live with very little and they live very close with nature, you realize that it is not the abundance of material stuff that makes a human complete and happy. That completeness comes from other things, our relationship with each other, our friendships, our meaningful work, our language, our traditions, our parties, all of these things that make humans be part of a global community. And I think the concept of enoughness is simply a personal idea for how much is enough for me. We all have been taught to believe that we always need to have more. If you have a job, you need to have a bigger job, a bigger house, a bigger car. And we compare ourselves to each other to see if we have more than the neighbor or the other person. But the true freedom, the true liberation comes in understanding for yourself. When do you have enough? When does your family have enough to be happy, to be sheltered, to have food, to go on vacation? And maybe that's enough. And you don't need to get into this rat race of consumerism to try to get more. It's liberating.
The title of your current exhibition at the Galleria d'Italia in Turin is The Great Wisdom. What does this wisdom consist of, and how can we contribute to it?
I was inspired by a beautiful poem that I read a long time ago by Henry Weston, and he wrote a book called The Outermost House. And in that book, he talks about the fact that we may need a wiser and more complete understanding of nature and animals. Because our current wisdom, our current understanding, sees nature and animals as inferior to humans. We judge creatures by our own senses, and we think that all animals hear and smell and see the way that humans do. And the fact of the matter is that animals live in different societies with their own set of rules, and they perceive the world in a very different way. And the poem continues by saying that they're trapped in the spaceship of planet Earth, traveling alongside humans with us, and they're our fellow nations, our fellow passengers. And so this greater wisdom, just trying to dismantle our colonial beliefs of the superiority of humans over nature, and trying to relate to indigenous knowledge, to the wisdom of other nations. Whales, what do they know? Sea turtles. I mean, these animals live complete lives in their own environment. So that's what the greater wisdom is. We need to understand our planet better so that we can take better care of it.
Was the exhibition layout in Turin entirely your choice, or were there editorial decisions that influenced the overall message?
When we have so many cooks on the table, we had a National Geographic, we had the staff of the Galleria d'Italia, and then I had my own staff. So we spent a year and a half putting ideas on the table and discussing different ways of laying out this exhibition. And we went back and forth on making it bigger and making it smaller. And eventually we all landed and agreed on this concept of the greater wisdom and dividing the exhibition on the humanity, the landscapes, the animals, and then the ocean. And trying to create a narrative that takes people through a journey on just how beautiful our planet is. And I think collaboration can be good. I'm not always happy, but Antonio Carloni is a diplomat. He's a master of negotiating with people that have different opinions.
Please excuse me because I forgot to add one question that we posed to every National Geographic photographer during our history. So I will ask you this one. If photography could be divided into three moments, the framing, the shooting, and the viewing of the developed photo, which of these moments would you be most excited about?
I think as photographers, we have to master all these three moments, but it is the fourth moment that really matters. And that is once the image has been made with all the elements that it requires to be an impactful image, that's when the activism begins. That's when the photographer becomes the diplomat that takes these images to the people that can make decisions about how to protect our planet. And that fourth element of photography is where I have spent most of my career and where I have invited so many other photographers to want to make a difference with their work. So we're building an army of photographers that are also activists for nature.
Is there a single photography you are most emotionally tied to?
There are a couple of emotions that are elicited by photography. I was talking to a fellow photographer the other day and saying we are like war photographers out there documenting the extinction of biodiversity, the war on nature, and it can be really depressing. And so that feeling of anguish and fear and anger is one of the emotions. But the other emotion is, just the beauty and how lucky we are that we get to spend so much time in nature. I feel like photographers, we are so selfish. We want to be nature photographers because we love the solitude of being out in a forest or in the river or in the ocean in the company of animals. And to me, that is the real gift of my career, that my camera is just a passport to go and spend time with the animals that I love. So which ones are my favorite pictures? To speak about the anguish and the anger, the starving polar bear still makes me angry this day because we can't solve the issues of climate change unless we're all on board. And when it comes to images that are beautiful, I think just spending time with animals like whales takes your breath away. And just looking into the eyes of a creature whose language you don't speak and you don't understand its culture either, and it's trying to figure you out. Well, to me, it will never stop to amaze me. So lucky to be photographers.
I personally think animals are innocent victims, and we as humans deserve a very, very harsh trial from them
We will,
if
we
this
will
is
get it.
possible.
We will get it, Silvio. It's coming. I like to think that Earth will continue to be Earth. Earth will Earth. And it is the species who have misbehaved that are going to do very poorly. But I think Earth will continue to carry on, and a new iteration of creatures will be living here 100,000 years from now, and we'll see. I would love to see it and photograph it, but maybe it's not for humans.
What upcoming projects are you working on?
I am so busy, Sylvia, because I do two things that I love. On the one hand, I love the work that we do with Sea Legacy, and we are very involved right now, working with 100 of the best photographers in the world on a fundraiser for the ocean that we call 100 for the Ocean. My husband, Paul Nicklin, and I literally just picked up the phone and called 100 of our best friends, photographers, people like Steve McCurry and Art Wolf and Beverly Joubert, 100, and asked them if they would like to help us raise money for the ocean, and they all said yes. So we're raising $1 million. People are buying prints. These prints ship all over the world. Even just one print that people buy can make a big difference for ocean conservation. So that's one thing I do with Sea Legacy. We're working now in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. I'm sure you've heard 90% of the reef was bleached this year because of climate change. The water is just so warm that the coral reefs are dying. And it is very dramatic. It's very sad. So we're trying to call attention to these. This is an ecosystem that you can see from space, the Great Barrier Reef, and 90% is bleached. They think that 50% is going to die. So the questions that we don't have answers for are the ones that I lose my sleep over. What does that mean for all the fish? What does that mean for the tourism in the area, for the communities that live there and around the world? So that's one thing I'm working on. But the other thing I'm working on is I'm collaborating with Young Ocean Explorers. It's a father-daughter team, filmmakers in New Zealand. They're trying to encourage New Zealand to create more marine protections. They teach all the children in the schools, and that is really fun. And tomorrow I get to speak here to local high school here in Vancouver Island to talk to these young people, very young, 13, 14-year-olds, about finding a career in the arts and science and conservation. And I'm working on my book. I'm working on hope. We're going to press in Paris in the next few weeks. So we're putting together this beautiful book. And the book is just a reminder that if we're going to try to fight for our planet, we need to make a choice to remain hopeful, to not become cynical and apathetic and disinterested. It takes all of us, so we really need hope.
And we gladly join your hope, Cristina. Thank you very much for your answers, for your compelling words, because these words matters, really matters, because we need people living the message, not only telling the message, and you are one of them.
Thank you. I don't know what else to do. But yes, it's an invitation to all my fellow photographers to do everything they can. I like to imagine that we wear a superhero suit with our cameras and our wetsuits, and we're out there fighting for our planet, and we just need to, really be superheroes. So let's go do it.
So thank you very much.
Grazie Cristina.
Grazie.
Grazie, Federico.
Grazie.